listen to me. If tears are in your eyes right now, don't hide them. If your heart feels heavy, don't apologize for it. If life has bent you, bruised you, and broken your silence, hear this clearly today. Your tears are not proof of weakness. They are proof that you are still alive, still believing, still chosen. God never counts your tears to shame you. God counts them because each tear carries a story of survival. Today, I stand before you to say something the world never taught you. You were taught to be strong by pretending. You were taught to smile while bleeding inside. You were taught that tears mean failure. But God never asked you to be unbreakable. God asked you to be honest. So today I say, wipe away your tears, not because you are weak, but because you have cried long enough in silence. God sees the nights no one clapped for you. God hears the prayers you whispered when your voice was shaking. And God says, you are not falling apart. You are being rebuilt. There are moments in life when you wake up already tired, not because your body is weak, but because your heart has been carrying conversations no one ever heard. You sit among people, you smile, you respond, you function. But inside, something feels heavy. You try to explain it, but the words don't come out right. When you open your mouth, your throat tightens. And suddenly, your eyes fill with tears you didn't plan. In that moment, the world makes you feel embarrassed, like you failed some unspoken test of strength. But hear this clearly today, those tears are not confusion, and they are not weakness. They are language. And God understands that language perfectly. Think about a day when everything looks normal from the outside. You're going to work, managing responsibilities, answering calls, fulfilling expectations. But inside, you're replaying a moment that hurt you deeply, a rejection, a loss, a betrayal, or a dream that didn't turn out the way you prayed for. You tell yourself to stay strong, so you swallow your feelings all day long. Then at night, when the world finally gets quiet, the tears come. No speech, no explanation, just tears. And in that silence, you may think God is far away because you didn't say a proper prayer. But God was never waiting for perfect words. God was listening to your tears. A baby cries before it ever learns how to speak, and those tears communicate hunger, pain, fear, and need without a single sentence. No one tells that baby, stop crying, you're weak. Everyone understands that the tears mean something needs attention. In the same way, when your soul cries, it's not malfunctioning, it's communicating. Tears are what come out when emotions are too honest to be edited. God doesn't require you to be polished to be heard. God hears what people can't hear. The ache behind the smile, the exhaustion behind the I'm fine, the hope behind the heartbreak. There are days when you kneel, sit, or lie down trying to talk to God. All you can do is breathe deeply and let tears fall. You may feel guilty, thinking you should be stronger, more grateful, more faithful. But tears are not the absence of trust. They are evidence that you care deeply about what you've placed in God's hands. You don't cry over things that don't matter. You cry because something matters to you, your future, your family, your dignity, your healing. God does not look at your tears as complaints. God receives them as truth. Look at everyday life. A mother stays awake all night worried about her child's future. A father sits quietly in his car after work, overwhelmed by responsibilities he never speaks about. A student cries in secret after failing despite trying their best. A person who lost someone sits alone, surrounded by memories that still hurt. None of these tears are dramatic performances. They are silent messages rising from the deepest part of the soul. And God understands every one of them without translation. Sometimes people talk to everyone except God about their pain because they believe God expects strength, perfection, and constant gratitude. But God never demanded performance. God invites honesty. Tears are honesty in its purest form. They say, I can't carry this alone anymore. And that surrender is not defeat. It is the beginning of relief. When you cry, you are not pushing God away. You are opening a door. The world teaches you to suppress tears in public, to keep your composure, to hide vulnerability. But God does not heal what you pretend isn't hurting. Tears wash the soul the way rain washes dust from the air. After tears, clarity slowly begins to return. After tears, the heart breathes again. After tears, strength grows, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that keeps you going. There is something powerful about a person who allows themselves to cry and still chooses to stand up again. Tears don't mean you're giving up. They mean you're releasing what was poisoning you inside. God is not intimidated by your emotions. God designed you with the ability to feel deeply. And every tear you shed is seen, not dismissed, not mocked, not ignored. So the next time tears come, don't rush to wipe them away in shame. Let them speak. Let them rise. Let them fall. Because when words fail, tears take over and God listens closely. Not to judge you, not to weaken you, but to remind you that you are human, you are heard, and you are never alone. There comes a moment in life when pain whispers a dangerous lie to you. It tells you that because something went wrong, something must be wrong with you. It tells you that because you suffered, you missed your moment. Because you struggled, you failed your destiny. This lie settles quietly into the heart, and over time, people begin to believe that pain disqualifies them. But today, that lie ends. Pain does not cancel purpose. Pain does not erase what God placed inside you. Pain only changes the route, never the destination. Look at everyday life. Think about a road under construction. The journey becomes slower, messier, frustrating, dust everywhere, noise, delays. But construction doesn't mean the road is abandoned. It means it's being strengthened to handle heavier traffic. In the same way, when life hurts, when plans collapse, when expectations break, it doesn't mean God has walked away from your purpose. It means reinforcement is happening where you can't yet see it. Many people look at their past and say, if only that hadn't happened, if only I hadn't failed, if only I hadn't trusted the wrong person, if only I hadn't lost that opportunity, if only life had been kinder. But what if the pain you wish away is the very thing that shaped your wisdom? What if the delay taught you patience? What if the disappointment protected you from something worse? God's work is not always gentle, but it is always intentional. Consider someone who trains their body. Muscles grow not by comfort, but by resistance. Without strain, there is no strength. Without pressure, there is no growth. Pain in that context is not destruction, it's development. In the same way, emotional and life struggles stretch parts of you that comfort never could. Pain introduces you to a version of yourself you would never meet otherwise. Resilient, observant, humble, and deeply aware. There are people listening who believe they are behind in life. You see others moving ahead, marrying, succeeding, celebrating, and you feel stuck. And pain convinces you that you missed your season. But purpose is not a race. God does not operate on human timelines. Some seeds grow fast, others grow deep. And the ones that grow deep survive storms that destroy shallow roots. Your pain may have slowed you down, but it also grounded you. Think about how often the strongest people you know are the ones who have been through the most. They speak differently. They listen more carefully. They don't judge quickly. They know how to survive silence. That didn't come from ease. It came from endurance. Pain gave them layers. Pain gave them understanding. Pain taught them how to stand when applause disappeared. That depth is not accidental. God never wastes suffering. Pain also has a way of stripping illusions. It removes fake support, false confidence, and shallow dreams. It forces you to confront who you really are and what really matters. And though that process is uncomfortable, it is necessary. You don't build a strong future on fragile foundations. God allows some things to break so that what is rebuilt can last. There are moments when pain makes you feel small, powerless, and unseen. You may ask, if God has a purpose for me, why would this hurt so much? But purpose is not proven by ease. Purpose is proven by survival. The fact that you are still standing after what you went through is evidence that your life carries meaning. Pain didn't destroy you because it couldn't. What God placed inside you is stronger than what came against you. Every scar you carry holds information. It teaches you what to avoid, what to value, and what to protect. Pain sharpens discernment. It teaches boundaries. It matures character. And while you may never celebrate the pain itself, one day you will recognize the strength it produced. You will see how it redirected you away from paths that look good but would have cost you everything. Sometimes pain feels like a pause, but it is often a preparation. God does not prepare people on stages. God prepares them in hidden places, quiet battles, and unseen tears. Purpose requires weight, and pain builds the capacity to carry that weight without collapsing. If life had been easier, you might not have been ready for what's ahead. So if you're hurting, don't conclude that your story is over. Don't decide that you're broken beyond repair. Pain does not get the final word. God does. And God says your purpose is still alive, still breathing, still unfolding. What hurt you did not cancel you. It shaped you. And one day, you will look back and realize that the pain you thought ended you was the very thing that prepared you to rise stronger than before. There is a quiet pressure placed on people every day, a pressure so common that most don't even question it anymore. It says, be strong, don't talk about it. Hold it together. Don't let them see you struggle. From a young age, many are taught that strength looks like silence. That courage means swallowing pain. That maturity means handling everything alone. So people learn to lock their emotions behind smiles, jokes, and productivity. They show up, perform, and keep going while something inside them slowly suffocates. But that idea of strength is not truth. Real strength has never been about silence. Think about daily life. Imagine a pressure cooker on a stove. When the heat builds and there is no release, the danger increases. That's why it has a valve. Releasing pressure doesn't make the cooker weak. It prevents destruction. In the same way, when people never speak, never admit they're tired, never say, this hurts, the pressure builds. Silence doesn't make you strong. It just hides the damage until it becomes unbearable. God never designed the human heart to carry everything alone. Look at how often people say, I'm fine, when they are clearly not. They go to work with a heavy heart. They sit with family while feeling invisible. They scroll through messages while feeling disconnected from everyone. And because they've learned to be silent, no one knows how close they are to breaking. Silence becomes a mask, and over time, people forget what their real face looks like beneath it. God does not confuse silence with strength. God sees the cost of pretending. There is strength in speaking up and saying, I need help. There is courage in admitting, I don't have all the answers. It takes far more bravery to be honest than to hide behind a calm appearance. Anyone can pretend. Anyone can smile through pain, but it takes real strength to be vulnerable in a world that rewards emotional armor. God honors honesty, not performance. Everyday examples show this truth clearly. A person carrying financial stress alone becomes anxious and exhausted, but when they finally talk to someone, even without solutions, their breathing changes. A parent overwhelmed by responsibility feels like a failure for admitting exhaustion, yet the moment they speak, relief begins. A student struggling silently feels ashamed. But when they open up, they realize they were never alone. Speaking doesn't remove the problem instantly, but it lightens the load enough to keep going. That is strength. Silence often comes from fear, fear of judgment, fear of appearing weak, fear of being misunderstood. But living in fear is not strength either. God did not create you to shrink yourself to survive other people's expectations. Strength is not about appearing unshaken. It's about continuing forward even while acknowledging that you are human. God already knows your struggles. Speaking them doesn't expose you. It frees you. There are people who survive difficult seasons by going quiet. Silence was their coping mechanism. It helped them endure when they had no safe place to speak. And that silence may have saved them once. But survival is not the same as healing. What protected you in one season can imprison you in another. God doesn't want you stuck in survival mode forever. God wants restoration, and restoration begins when truth is allowed to breathe. Notice how the strongest connections in life are built on honest communication. Relationships don't deepen through silence, they deepen through shared truth. Trust grows when people speak openly. The same principle applies inwardly. When you acknowledge your pain instead of hiding it, you build trust with yourself. You stop abandoning your own needs. That inner alignment is strength. Strength also shows up in boundaries. Speaking up to say no. Saying, this is too much. Saying, I need rest requires confidence. Silence often keeps people trapped in situations that drain them. God never called you to be endlessly available at the cost of your peace. Strength includes knowing when to speak, when to pause, and when to protect your inner world. There is something powerful about a person who can say, I am struggling, but I am still standing. That sentence holds both honesty and hope. It doesn't deny pain, and it doesn't surrender to it. That balance is real strength. God is not impressed by how much you hide. God is moved by how much truth you are willing to bring into the light. So if you've been quiet because you thought silence made you strong, hear this clearly: your voice matters, your truth matters, your feelings matter. Strength is not silence. Strength is showing up as you are, speaking when your heart is heavy, and trusting that God can handle the truth of your pain. You don't lose power when you speak, you reclaim it. There are seasons in life when you feel full of energy, clarity, and excitement, and then there are seasons when everything feels drained. You wake up and move through your day on routine, not passion. The joy you once felt seems distant. You pray, you hope, you wait, but inside you feel empty. And in that emptiness, a quiet fear begins to grow. You wonder if you've done something wrong, if you've been forgotten, if God has stepped away. But that emptiness is not abandonment. It is often the deepest kind of work taking place. Think about daily life. When a phone battery is completely drained, it doesn't mean the phone is broken. It means it needs time connected to a power source. But while it's charging, it appears useless, screen dark, silent, unresponsive. Yet inside, power is being restored. In the same way, when you feel empty, quiet, and disconnected, God may be restoring strength beneath the surface. The silence is not a sign of absence. It's a sign of renewal happening out of sight. We live in a world that celebrates noise. Results must be visible. Progress must be announced. Growth must be measurable. But God often works in ways that don't make headlines. Roots don't grow above the ground. Seeds don't make noise when they break open. Yet that breaking is necessary for life to rise. Emptiness feels uncomfortable because it removes distractions. It forces stillness. And in that stillness, God begins to rearrange what business kept hidden. There are people who stay busy not because they are productive, but because they are afraid of what they'll feel if they stop. When the noise fades, old wounds speak, unanswered questions surface, disappointments resurface. Emptiness brings you face to face with what needs healing. That is not punishment, it is mercy. God is not trying to expose you to shame you. God is trying to reach you where you've been avoiding yourself. Consider how healing works in everyday situations. A broken bone is immobilized before it strengthens. Movement stops so alignment can happen. Growth requires stillness first. In the same way, emotional and spiritual rebuilding often begins with a pause. God slows you down not to harm you, but to heal what constant motion was damaging. Feeling empty may simply mean you are being held still long enough to be restored properly. There are times when you give and give until there is nothing left. You show up for everyone. You meet expectations. You support others, and eventually you feel depleted. That emptiness is not failure. It's a signal. Even God designed rest into creation. Emptiness calls you back to balance. It invites you to receive instead of constantly producing. God is not asking you to pour from an empty place. God is asking you to be refilled. Many people fear emptiness because they equate it with worthlessness. They believe if they are not feeling inspired, joyful, or motivated, then they are losing value. But value is not measured by emotion. You are still valuable when you feel nothing. You are still chosen when you feel numb. God's commitment to you does not fluctuate with your emotional state. Even in emptiness, you are held. Sometimes emptiness feels like you're going backwards. But consider renovation. Old structures must be cleared before something stronger can be built. Dust, mess, and disruption are part of the process. God may be removing outdated beliefs, unhealthy attachments, or false identities that no longer serve you. That removal feels like loss, but it is actually preparation. Space is being made for something truer. In daily life, the quietest moments are often the most meaningful. The pause before dawn, the deep breath before speaking, the silence before decision. Emptiness is that pause. It's the space between what was and what will be. God works powerfully in that space, even when you can't feel it. So if you feel empty today, don't panic. Don't rush to fill the space with noise, distractions, or false comfort. Sit with it. Breathe through it. Trust that something is happening beneath the surface. God is not distant. God is deliberate, and when the fullness returns, and it will, you'll realize that the emptiness was not a void, it was a workshop. There are moments when you look at your life and wonder how you are still standing, not in a dramatic way, not for applause, but in a quiet, almost confused way. You think about what you've been through, the nights you cried yourself to sleep, the days you felt completely alone, the times you almost gave up, and you ask yourself, how did I survive that? The answer is not luck. The answer is not coincidence. The answer is evidence. Your survival is proof that your life carries meaning far greater than the pain you faced. Everyday life shows us this truth in simple ways. Think of a small plant growing through concrete. No one planned for it to survive there. The environment is harsh, unforgiving, and restrictive, yet somehow that plant finds a crack, reaches for light, and grows anyway. When people see it, they pause, not because the plant is large or impressive, but because it exists where it shouldn't. Your life is like that. You grew in places that were not kind to you. You endured conditions that should have crushed you, and yet you are here. Many people underestimate what they've survived because it didn't happen all at once. It came slowly, pressure added to pressure, disappointment layered on disappointment. You adapted. You learned to keep moving. And because you didn't collapse publicly, you assumed it wasn't that serious. But survival doesn't need witnesses to be real. Quiet endurance is still endurance. God saw the weight you carried when no one else noticed. There were moments when you didn't feel strong at all. You woke up exhausted. You questioned your worth. You doubted your future, but you still showed up. You still took the next step. You still kept going even when your heart was tired. That is survival. Not heroic, not glamorous, just faithful movement forward. And God honors that kind of strength. Think about how often people say, I don't know how I got through that. That sentence alone is evidence of something greater at work. When your own strength ran out, something held you. When your mind was overwhelmed, something steadied you. When quitting seemed easier than continuing, something inside you refused to let go. That something is not random. God placed resilience within you long before the storm arrived. Survival also changes the way you see life. After deep pain, small things feel more meaningful. A quiet morning, a deep breath, a moment of peace. Survival sharpens gratitude. It doesn't make you fearless. It makes you aware. Aware of how fragile life can be and how powerful it is to still be here. That awareness is wisdom earned through experience. There are people who look confident on the outside but have never faced real hardship. And then there are people who move gently, speak thoughtfully, and carry depth in their eyes. That depth comes from survival. It comes from walking through fire and learning how not to become bitter. God uses survival to shape character, not just to preserve life. Sometimes you feel behind in life because survival took time. While others were building, celebrating, and advancing, you were just trying to make it through the day. And that can feel unfair. But survival is not wasted time. It is preparation time. You are learning lessons others haven't learned yet. You were developing endurance others may still lack. God was strengthening you in ways that success alone never could. Survival also teaches compassion. When you've hurt deeply, you recognize pain in others, you listen differently, you judge less, you understand silence. That sensitivity is not weakness. It is strength refined by experience. God often allows survivors to become safe places for others, not because they have all the answers, but because they understand what it means to hurt and still hope. There were moments when you thought your survival was meaningless, that you were just existing, not living. But existence itself is a statement. Every breath you take says, my story isn't finished. God doesn't preserve life without purpose. If you were meant to be done, you wouldn't still be here. The fact that you are alive means there is something still unfolding. Sometimes survival feels like the lowest bar. You tell yourself, I'm just surviving, thriving. But survival is the foundation of everything that comes next. You cannot rebuild if you don't remain. You cannot grow if you don't endure. God doesn't rush healing. God protects life first. Thriving comes later. Survival is the first victory. So when you doubt your worth, look at your survival. When you question your future, look at your endurance. When you feel unseen, remember that God has been watching every step. You didn't survive by accident. You survived because there is more ahead of you than behind you. Your survival is not just a past achievement. It is a living testimony that your life still matters, your journey is still unfolding, and your purpose is still very much alive. There comes a moment in life when you realize that wiping your tears is not a denial of your pain. It is a declaration of your future. You have cried, you have struggled, you have felt small, defeated, and unseen. You have poured your heart out in quiet corners, in lonely rooms, and under the weight of nights no one noticed. And yet here you are, breathing, standing, listening. This is the moment when you understand that tears were never your weakness. They were your preparation. They were washing your vision, clearing the path for the rise that God has planned for you. Think about daily life. A storm can rip through a city, destroying buildings, roads, and trees. After the storm, the streets are flooded, the air is heavy, and it seems like the world is broken. But after the storm, life begins to grow again. Streets are repaired, trees push new leaves. People rebuild stronger homes. The storm did not end the city. It revealed its resilience. Your tears have been like that storm. They were powerful, necessary in cleansing. And now, God is preparing you to rise stronger than before. When we cry, our hearts are processing more than our minds can understand. Tears are not just water. They are memories, lessons, emotions, and release. Every tear contains a story of patience, of endurance, of faith when you felt none left. And when you choose to wipe those tears, you are not erasing the story. You are saying, I am ready to step into what is next. God never calls people to remain in sorrow. God calls people to rise, renewed, informed, and aware of the strength that has been forged in their trials. Consider someone who has been carrying a heavy weight for years, a responsibility at work, a family burden, or a dream that feels unreachable. Each day feels like a battle, each night a reminder of how tired they are. And then one day something shifts. They decide consciously to stop letting the weight define them. They wipe their tears, not because the struggle has disappeared, because they recognize that their endurance is preparing them for the next chapter. That is the moment when God's work becomes visible, not in the removal of challenges, but in the empowerment of the person who faces them. Your rise comes with awareness. When you wipe your tears, you start seeing life differently. You notice opportunities that were invisible when sorrow clouded your vision. You start appreciating moments of joy you ignored because they were overshadowed by pain. You see people who are ready to support you in ways you didn't notice before. Life is not suddenly perfect. It never is. But you begin to operate from a place of clarity, knowing that your pain did not destroy you, it directed you. Daily examples surround us. A young professional who endured repeated rejection in their career finally lands a role that suits their talent perfectly. A parent who struggled to hold a family together through financial hardship finally sees stability returning. A person who faced betrayal and heartbreak learns to trust again and builds deeper, stronger relationships. Each of these rises began with a decision to wipe away the tears of yesterday and step boldly into the potential of tomorrow. God's hand is present in these moments, guiding, strengthening, and confirming that the struggle was never wasted. Rising is not only about recovery, it is about transformation. Every tear you shed, every night you spent questioning your worth, every moment you felt powerless became a tool to shape your character. Strength is not simply surviving. Strength is becoming the person capable of walking confidently through life's storms without being shaken. God designed your rise not just for yourself, but for the impact you will make in the lives of others. Your resilience will inspire, your story will empower, and your courage will remind people that they too can overcome. There is also something sacred in acknowledging that God works in ways unseen. When you feel empty, lost, or broken, God is still arranging pieces for your rise. Life may feel unfair, delayed, or uncertain, but God's vision is broader than what you can perceive. Wiping your tears signals readiness to receive that vision. It says, I am no longer defined by my pain. I am defined by the strength I have gained from it. This is how ordinary people become extraordinary, not by avoiding storms, but by choosing to rise after them. Sometimes, wiping your tears is an act of courage that requires everything within you. It is easy to stay in sorrow because it feels safe. It is hard to move forward because it demands hope when hope feels distant. But God never intended for you to stay where sorrow rules. He intended for you to stand, to shine, and to rise. Every step you take after deciding to rise is a testament to your inner power, a power that has been nurtured quietly, deeply, and relentlessly through every trial you have faced. So when you wipe away your tears, know this: you are not weak. You are rising. You are not defeated. You are awakening. You are not lost. You are stepping into life that was meant for you all along. God is with you in every step, every struggle, and every triumph. The same hands that held you through tears now lift you toward a future that is brighter, stronger, and filled with purpose. Your rise is your proof that your story continues, proof that pain never had the final word, and proof that what was once sorrow is now your strength. You are not weak. You are becoming. You are rising.